Commander Jake Morrison stared at the strange readings on his screen. The exploration ship UFS Endeavour had been mapping empty space for 3 weeks, but now something big was out there, something that did not belong in any Federation database. "Captain, we are getting a distress signal," called out Lieutenant Sam Brooks from the communications station. His voice carried worry that made everyone on the bridge look up from their work. Captain Lisa Parker moved quickly to the communications console. She had been in space for 15 years, but this was different. The signal was not coming from any Federation ship or known alien species. "Can you understand it?" "It is not in any language we know," Brooks replied. "But the computer thinks it might be a call for help. The pattern matches distress signals from 12 different species." "Jake." Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. As the ship's commander, he had to make the decision. Space was dangerous and unknown signals could mean anything. But the Federation rules were clear. If someone needed help, they had to try. "Set course for the signal," Jake ordered. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready." The Endeavour turned toward the source of the signal. It took 6 hours to reach it, and what they found made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Hundreds of massive ships floated in space, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The smallest ship was 5 times larger than the Endeavour. "My God," whispered Dr. Helen Rodriguez, the ship's science officer. "I have never seen anything like this. The alien ships looked like they were built for war. Their hulls were thick and covered with weapon systems. Strange symbols glowed along their sides. The largest ship in the center looked like it could destroy a planet." "Captain," called out Ensign Rick Turner from the sensor station, "I am reading life signs on those ships, thousands of them, but they are not like anything in our records." Before Lisa could respond, the main screen flickered. An alien face appeared, and everyone on the bridge stepped back. The creature looked like it was made of stone. Its skin was gray and cracked like old rock. Its eyes glowed red, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Small ship," the alien said in broken Federation standard. "You come to our call. We are War Chief Krazan of the Vorthak Empire. You will speak with us." Lisa took a deep breath. This was first contact with a completely new species, maybe several species. Everything she said now would matter for years to come. "This is Captain Lisa Parker of the United Federation ship Endeavour. We received your distress signal and came to help." The stone-faced alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Help? You think your tiny ship can help the Deathworld Alliance? Your people must be very brave or very stupid." "We are explorers and peacekeepers," Lisa replied carefully. "If you need assistance, we will try to provide it." War Chief Krazan studied the human faces on his screen. To him they looked soft and weak. Their skin was smooth, their bodies small. They came from what his people would call a baby world, a place where nothing dangerous lived. "Your ship may come aboard our flagship," Krazan decided. "We will talk, but know this, soft ones. We are the Deathworld Alliance. We come from worlds that would kill you in seconds. If you try to trick us, you will die." Jake felt his crew tense around him. The aliens' threat was clear, but so was the opportunity. These were new species, probably very powerful ones. Making friends with them could change everything for humanity. "We accept your invitation," Lisa said. "We will come in peace." The alien connection ended, and the bridge fell silent. Everyone knew they were about to make history, but nobody knew if it would be good history or bad history. 2 hours later, a small shuttle from the Endeavour approached the massive alien flagship. Jake, Lisa, and Dr. Rodriguez were aboard, along with 3 security officers. The alien ship was so big that their shuttle looked like an insect flying toward a mountain. The shuttle bay they entered was enormous. It could have held 50 ships the size of the Endeavour. Strange aliens moved around the bay, and each one looked more dangerous than the last. Some had armor that looked like it was made from metal. Others had skin that seemed to glow with heat. A few looked like they were made of crystal or living rock. "Stay close and stay calm," Jake whispered to his team as they left the shuttle. War Chief Krazan was waiting for them with a group of other aliens. Up close, he was even more frightening. He stood 9 feet tall, and his stone-like skin had cracks that glowed with red light. Next to him stood a creature that looked like it was made of living metal, and another that seemed to be constantly on fire. "So these are humans," Crazon said, looking down at the small Federation team. "You are much smaller than we expected. How do you survive on your world with such weak bodies?" Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. As the science officer, she was supposed to handle first contact protocols. "Our species evolved differently than yours. We survived by working together and using tools." The metal creature made a sound like grinding gears. "I am Commander Vextar of the Zenari. Your tools are interesting, but they seem very simple. How do you fight wars with such basic equipment?" "We try not to fight wars," Lisa answered honestly. "We prefer to solve problems through talking and cooperation." This caused all the aliens to make sounds that might have been laughter. The fire creature spoke in a voice like a burning forest. "I am General Thermos of the Heat Worlds. You do not fight wars? Then how do you grow strong? How do you prove you deserve to live?" Jake realized that these aliens thought very differently about conflict than humans did. For them, war seemed to be normal, maybe even necessary. "We grow, strong by learning and building. We prove ourselves by helping others and exploring new places." War Chief Crazon studied the humans with growing interest. Everything about them was strange. They were small and weak, but they had built ships that could travel between stars. They claimed to avoid war, but they had come to answer a distress call from unknown aliens. They talked about cooperation, but their ship had weapons. "Your Federation," Crazon said slowly. "How many worlds does it control?" "The Federation does not control worlds," Lisa explained. "It is a group of different species that work together. Each world governs itself, but we share knowledge and help each other." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. "Commander," Vextar's metal face showed what might have been surprise. "You share power with other species without conquering them first?" "Yes," Jake said. "We believe that working together makes everyone stronger." General Thermos made a sound like wood crackling in fire. "This is very strange. On our worlds, only the strongest survive. The weak serve the strong or they die. How do your weak species survive if you do not make them serve you?" Dr. Rodriguez realized that these aliens came from worlds so dangerous that only the strongest could live. They probably could not understand how different species could be equal partners. "Our worlds are not as dangerous as yours. We do not need to fight to survive every day." War Chief Crazon made his decision. "We will learn more about each other. Some of my people will visit your Federation worlds. Some of your people will stay with our fleet. We will see if soft world species and hard world species can understand each other." Lisa nodded. This was exactly what they had hoped for. A chance to build a bridge between two very different groups of species. "We agree this could be the beginning of a great friendship." But as the aliens showed the humans to their quarters, none of them realized how much this meeting would change both civilizations. The Deathworld Alliance was about to learn that the most dangerous species in the galaxy might be the ones that looked the weakest. 3 weeks later, a group of Deathworld Alliance aliens stood on Earth, watching something they could not believe. Human children were playing in a park, running around and laughing while rain fell from the sky. The aliens wore protective suits, because Earth's atmosphere was too dangerous for them to breathe safely. Commander Vexitar, the metal-skinned Zenari, watched through his helmet's sensors. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said in his grinding voice, "why are those small humans outside during an acid storm?" Dr. Helen Rodriguez looked confused. "Acid storm? It's just rain. Normal water falling from clouds." "Water?" General Thermos, the fire creature, stepped back in alarm. His heat-resistant suit steamed as raindrops hit it. "That liquid kills most life forms on contact. How can your young ones play in it?" "Water doesn't hurt us," Helen explained patiently. "We need it to live. Our bodies are mostly made of water." The 3 aliens looked at each other with what humans were learning to recognize as fear. In the 3 weeks since first contact, the cultural exchange had revealed shocking differences between the species. What humans considered normal, the Deathworld Alliance found terrifying. War Chief Crazon, who had insisted on visiting Earth, personally, pointed at a group of teenagers playing a game with a ball. Those young humans are attacking each other. Why do the adults not stop this violence? They are playing football, Helen said. It is a sport. They do it for fun. Fun? Crazon's stone-like face showed confusion. They are deliberately causing harm to their own kind for pleasure? Helen watched the game and tried to see it through alien eyes. The teenagers were tackling each other, hitting hard enough to knock each other down. For species where every individual was precious because survival was so difficult, it probably looked like madness. Human children learn through play fighting, she explained. It makes them stronger and teaches them to work together. Dr. Kevin Hayes, who had been assigned to study the Alliance delegation, was learning equally disturbing things about human behavior. He had been showing the aliens through medical facilities when Commander Vextar found something that made him stop moving entirely. This human, Vextar said, pointing at a patient, has deliberately poisoned himself with a chemical called alcohol, yet your healers are helping him recover so he can poison himself again? Kevin sighed. This was the 5th time today an alien had been shocked by normal human behavior. Alcohol is not exactly poison. Many humans drink it to relax or socialize. Only too much is dangerous. You consume toxins for pleasure, General Thermos stated. You expose yourselves to deadly radiation from your star. You live with creatures that could kill you. Your species should have died out long ago. That afternoon, Helen took the delegation to a zoo. She thought seeing Earth's animals might help the aliens understand human evolution. Instead, it made things worse. These predators, Crazon said, staring at a lion through thick glass. They live near your cities? How many humans do they kill each year? Lions don't live near cities, Helen said. These are in captivity. We keep them safe and study them. You capture apex predators and keep them alive. Vextar sounded horrified. On Zanari worlds, we destroy such creatures immediately. They are too dangerous to exist. The aliens became even more disturbed when they learned that humans kept smaller predators in their homes as companions. The idea that humans shared their living spaces with creatures descended from pack hunters was beyond their understanding. Meanwhile, on the Alliance flagship orbiting Earth, human observers were learning equally strange things about their hosts. Dr. Amy Foster, a military psychologist, was studying Alliance behavior patterns when she made a discovery that changed everything. Colonel Peterson, she called to her commanding officer, I need to show you something important. Colonel Carl Peterson had been trying to understand Alliance military structure for weeks. The aliens seemed to be constantly ready for war, but their conflicts followed patterns that made no sense to human military thinking. What did you find? He asked. Amy pulled up her research on the main screen. The Alliance species don't fight wars the way we do. For them, conflict is biological. They literally cannot exist without fighting something. She showed him brain scans from volunteer Alliance soldiers. Look at this. When they are not in combat or preparing for combat, their stress levels become dangerous. They get physically sick from peace. Carl stared at the data. You mean they have to fight? It is worse than that, Amy continued. They fight because their bodies and minds require it. Peace is not just boring to them, it is actually harmful. Their entire evolution happened on worlds so dangerous that constant aggression was the only way to survive. This explained why Alliance ships always traveled in war formations, why their conversations sounded like challenges, and why they seemed confused by human attempts at friendly cooperation. Back on Earth, the cultural exchange was reaching a crisis point. The Alliance delegation had just watched a group of human mountain climbers preparing for an expedition. The aliens could not understand why humans would voluntarily put themselves in deadly danger for no practical reason. These humans are going to climb a mountain, General Thermos observed. There are no resources to gather, no enemies to fight, no territory to claim. They climb simply to climb. Some humans enjoy challenges, Helen explained. They test themselves against nature, but they might die, Crazon pointed out. For nothing. They risk death for no gain except personal satisfaction. Commander Vexitar had been studying human medical records all morning. What he found disturbed him more than anything else they had discovered. Dr. Rodriguez, your species has something called extreme sports. Humans deliberately put themselves in situations that might kill them, and they call it entertainment. Helen nodded. Skydiving, rock climbing, racing cars. Yes, some humans enjoy taking risks. But why? Vexitar's metal face somehow managed to look confused. On our worlds, we take risks only when we must. Survival requires avoiding unnecessary dangers. The breakthrough came when Dr. Hayes arranged for both groups to watch the same event from different locations. A building in the city had caught fire, and human rescue workers were going inside to save people trapped on the upper floors. The Alliance delegation watched from their protective suits as humans ran into a burning building. To aliens from worlds where individual survival was the highest priority, this behavior was incomprehensible. Those humans are entering a death trap, Krazen observed. To save individuals they do not even know, this violates every principle of survival, but Helen saw something different. They are being brave. Risking their own lives to help others is one of the best things humans can do. General Thermos made his crackling sound of confusion. But the mathematics are wrong. They risk 3 lives to save 2. This reduces the total survival of your species. Numbers don't matter when people need help, Helen replied. We save others because it is the right thing to do. This was the moment when both sides began to realize how fundamentally different they were. The Alliance species had evolved on worlds so hostile that individual strength and survival were the only values that mattered. Humans had evolved on a world where cooperation and self-sacrifice could make the difference between thriving and merely surviving. Dr. Hayes received an urgent message from Colonel Peterson on the Alliance flagship. Amy, you need to get back here immediately. We have a problem. When Amy returned to the Alliance ship, she found the human observers in an emergency meeting. Colonel Peterson looked worried in a way she had never seen before. The Alliance leadership is getting scared, he announced. Not of our weapons or our technology. They are afraid of how we think. Dr. Foster pulled up her psychological profiles. I have been studying their reactions to human behavior. Every time we do something altruistic or cooperative, their stress levels spike. Our willingness to help strangers, to sacrifice for others, to take risks for no material gain, it terrifies them. Why? Asked Lieutenant Brooks, who had been studying Alliance communication patterns. Because it means we operate by completely different rules, Amy explained. They understand strength and weakness, winning and losing, survival and death. They don't understand concepts like honor, duty, or compassion. To them, these things look like mental illness. Colonel Peterson stood up slowly. Are you saying they think we are insane? Worse, Amy replied. They think we are unpredictable. For species that survived by being able to calculate threats and responses, humans represent something they cannot calculate. We make decisions based on values they cannot understand. Back on Earth, War Chief Krazen was having a private communication with his high command. The stone giant looked troubled as he spoke to the massive screen showing other Alliance leaders. The humans are not what they appear, he reported. They seem weak, but they may be the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Explain, demanded Supreme War Leader Gorthak, whose image flickered with barely contained energy. They do not follow survival logic, Krazen said slowly. They make choices that should weaken them, but somehow make them stronger. They risk death for strangers. They cooperate with other species without demanding submission. They treat their young not as resources to be protected, but as individuals to be trained for independence. The other Alliance leaders. War Chief Krazen stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking at the human ships approaching through space. The Alliance fleet had gathered in the neutral Kepler system for what both sides were calling joint military exercises. But Krazen knew this was really a test. The Alliance needed to understand what humans could do in battle. Look at their tiny ships. laughed General Thermus, his fiery form crackling with amusement. Our smallest frigate is bigger than their largest cruiser. This will be over quickly. Commander Vextar's metal face showed no emotion, but his voice carried concern. Size is not everything. These humans have surprised us before. Admiral Carl Peterson watched the Alliance fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the USS Liberty. The alien ships were huge and covered with weapons. Each one looked like it could destroy a small moon. His own fleet of 12 ships looked like toys next to them. Colonel Foster, he called to his ground commander, "Are your troops ready?" Colonel Amy Foster checked her tactical display one more time. She had 300 Marines spread across 6 ships, all equipped with the latest Federation gear, but looking at the Alliance force made her wonder if gear would be enough. "Ready as we can be, Admiral," she replied, "though I still think this is crazy." Captain Ryan Clark, commanding the fighter squadrons, was more confident. "Don't worry. About the size difference, big ships are easier targets. My pilots know what to do." The first exercise began at dawn, ship time. Both fleets were using practice weapons that could disable systems without destroying ships. The goal was simple: capture and hold a space station that had been placed between the two forces. War Chief Krazen ordered a traditional Alliance attack. His massive dreadnoughts moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Behind them came smaller cruisers and destroyers, all maintaining precise positions. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Alliance ships opened fire on the space station from long range. Their practice weapons hit like hammers, smashing through the station's defenses in minutes. Alliance boarding pods launched from the big ships, carrying troops in powered armor that could survive in deep space. 17 minutes to complete capture, reported Commander Vextar. Acceptable time for a fortress assault. But when it was humanity's turn, something strange happened. Instead of attacking the station directly, the human ships scattered in what looked like complete chaos. Some ships flew toward the station, others moved away, and a few seemed to disappear entirely. "What are they doing?" asked General Thermus. "Have they panicked?" War Chief Krazen watched carefully. In his long experience, chaos usually meant someone was either very stupid or very clever. Humans had not seemed stupid. The human attack began without warning. The ships that had seemed to disappear suddenly appeared right next to the space station. They had been hiding behind asteroids and debris, moving silently through space. Before the station's automated defenses could react, human troops were already inside. "How did they get past the sensors?" demanded Vextar. Captain Clark's voice came over the communication system. "We studied your sensor patterns during the first attack. Your technology looks for big energy signatures. Our ships run much cooler and quieter than yours." The human troops inside the station were not trying to fight their way through like the Alliance had done. Instead, they were doing something the Alliance had never seen before. They were turning the station's own systems against its defenses. Colonel Foster's Marines had spent weeks learning how the station worked. While Alliance troops used brute force to break through barriers, humans simply convinced the station's computers that they were authorized personnel. Within minutes, they had control of the entire facility without firing a shot. "Exercise complete," announced Admiral Peterson. "Station captured in 11 minutes. The Alliance observers were silent. They had been outfought by ships a fraction of their size, using methods they had never seen before. The second exercise was even more revealing. Both sides were given the same objective: destroy a heavily defended asteroid base. The Alliance used their standard approach, concentrating all their firepower on the strongest point until it broke. It worked, but it took nearly an hour and required almost all their ammunition. The base was completely destroyed, but so were 2 Alliance ships that got too close to the explosions. When the humans tried the same exercise, they did something that made the Alliance observers step back in shock. Instead of attacking the base directly, the human ships began flying in complex patterns around it. "They are just flying in circles," observed General Thermus. "What kind of strategy is this?" But War Chief Krazen was beginning to understand. They are not attacking the base. They are attacking the defenders' minds. The human ships were moving in patterns that seemed random, but actually followed a complex mathematical design. The base's defensive computers could not predict where the next attack would come from. Every time the defenses turned to face one threat, two more appeared from different directions. Colonel Foster explained over the communication channel, "We studied how your defensive systems work. They are designed to handle direct attacks from predictable directions. But if we attack from everywhere at once, the system cannot prioritize targets." The asteroid base's defenses began firing wildly, trying to hit targets that were never where they expected them to be. Within 20 minutes, the defensive systems had exhausted their ammunition shooting at shadows and empty space. "Now," ordered Admiral Peterson. The human ships stopped their complex dance and moved in perfect coordination. Every ship fired at exactly the same moment, hitting the base's weakest point simultaneously. The base was destroyed in seconds and no human ships were damaged. The third exercise shook the Alliance to its core. Both fleets were supposed to defend their flagships from attack while trying to destroy the enemy command ship. It was the kind of battle the Alliance had fought for thousands of years. War Chief Krazon arranged his ships in the strongest defensive formation known to his people. The smaller ships formed protective rings around his flagship, with each ring designed to stop attackers before they could reach the center. It was a formation that had never been broken. The human fleet scattered again, but this time, the Alliance was ready for their tricks. Or so they thought. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The human ships did not try to break through the Alliance formation. Instead, they began attacking multiple targets at the same time, forcing the Alliance ships to spread out their defensive fire. Captain Clark led his fighter squadrons in suicide runs that looked hopeless but served a deeper purpose. Every time Alliance ships turned to stop the fighters, human cruisers hit them from a different direction. Every time the cruisers were engaged, the fighters struck somewhere else. "They are trying to make us confused," realized Commander Vextar. "They want us to lose coordination." But Colonel Foster had studied Alliance psychology during the cultural exchange. She knew that Alliance species were used to individual combat, where each warrior fought alone. Their greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. "All ships implement Scatter Protocol 7, she ordered. The human fleet suddenly broke apart into dozens of small groups, each one attacking a different part of the Alliance formation. The Alliance ships, designed to work together in perfect coordination, found themselves fighting dozens of separate battles at the same time. War Chief Krazon watched in growing horror as his carefully planned formation fell apart. His ships were individually stronger than the human vessels, but they were not used to adapting quickly to changing situations. Every time they focused on one group of human attackers, 3 more groups hit them from directions they were not watching. "Concentrate fire on the human flagship," ordered Krazon. If he could destroy Admiral Peterson's ship, the human attack would collapse. But when Alliance ships turned their massive weapons toward the UFS Liberty, they discovered it was no longer there. The human flagship had moved to a completely different part of the battle while they were dealing with smaller attacks. "Where did it go?" demanded General Thermos. "Everywhere and nowhere," replied Admiral Peterson's voice over the communication system. "That is the point." The exercise ended when human ships appeared around War Chief Krazon's flagship from 6 different directions. The Alliance formation had been so completely broken that the command ship was left undefended. "Exercise complete," announced the neutral observers. Human victory. In the silence that followed, both fleets began to understand what had really happened. The Alliance had lost not because they were weaker, but because they had been fighting the wrong kind of war. War Chief Krazon requested a private meeting with Admiral Peterson aboard the neutral observation station. When they met, the stone giant looked older than his thousands of years. "Your people do not fight like warriors," Krazon said slowly. "You fight like something else." Admiral Peterson nodded. "We fight like problem solvers. Every battle is a puzzle to be solved, not a contest to be won." "But how do you find satisfaction in victory if you feel no joy in defeating enemies?" The human admiral thought carefully before answering. "We find satisfaction in ending conflicts, permanently. Winning a battle means nothing if the war continues. We pref The emergency council meeting on the Alliance flagship was unlike anything in their recorded history. War Chief Krazon sat at the head of a massive table, surrounded by the greatest military minds of the Deathworld Alliance. But for the first time in his long life, these minds were filled with doubt instead of confidence. "We need to face the truth," Krazon began, his stone face darker than usual. "The humans have shown us something that changes everything we know about warfare." General Thermos blazed with agitated fire. "They are weak creatures from a soft world. How can they threaten the greatest military force in the galaxy?" Commander Vextar's metal fingers drummed against the table. "Because they do not think like us. Watch the battle recordings again, study what they did." The massive screen lit up with images from the war games. Alliance officers watched their own ships, massive and powerful, being outmaneuvered by vessels a fraction of their size. They watched perfect formations being broken by tactics they had never seen before. "Look at this moment." Vextar pointed to the screen. "When we concentrated our fire on one target, they did not retreat or call for help. They used our concentration against us by attacking from 12 different directions." Science Prime Gorthak, the Alliance's chief strategist, made a sound like grinding stone. "They think many moves ahead. When they scattered their ships, they were not running away. They were setting up attacks we could not see coming." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every Alliance species had evolved on worlds where survival meant thinking about immediate threats. Planning beyond the next battle was a luxury they had never been able to afford. But humans seemed to plan for wars that had not even started yet. Meanwhile, on Earth, human military leaders were having their own emergency meeting. But their discussion was very different from the Alliance Council. General Patricia Stone stood before a room full of officers displaying her analysis of the war games. "We need to understand what we learned about our new neighbors," she began. Dr. Nina Kelly, the Federation's leading war psychologist, pulled up her reports. "The Alliance species are not evil or cruel. They are trapped by their own evolution. Their brain patterns show that they literally cannot imagine long-term peace." Colonel Foster nodded from her seat. "During the exercises, I watched their stress levels spike every time we did something unexpected. They are used to fights that follow patterns. When patterns break, they panic." Admiral Peterson leaned forward. "Are you saying they are predictable?" "Worse than that," Dr. Kelly replied. "They are limited. Their tactics have not changed in thousands of years because they cannot change. Innovation requires the ability to imagine different futures, and their evolution never gave them that ability." Dr. Kevin Hayes, who had spent months studying Alliance history, stood up with a troubling discovery. "I found something in their cultural records that explains everything. Every Alliance species has legends about ancient wars that ended not in victory or defeat, but in transformation." He displayed ancient Alliance texts on the main screen. These transformation wars happened when they encountered enemies who fought in ways they could not understand. The wars did not end because one side won. They ended because the Alliance species literally could not continue fighting. General Stone studied the texts carefully. "What do you mean they could not continue?" "Their entire identity is built on ritual combat," Hayes explained. "When they face enemies who do not follow the rituals, who treat war as a problem to solve instead of a contest to win, their psychological framework breaks down." The room went quiet as everyone realized what this meant. Humans had not just won the war games through superior tactics. They had demonstrated a form of warfare that could destroy the Alliance's entire cultural foundation. Back on the Alliance flagship, War Chief Krazon was reading reports that filled him with a fear he had never experienced. His intelligence officers had been studying human history, and what they found was beyond their worst nightmares. "Show them the data," Krazon ordered. Commander Vextar activated the display. "Humans have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history. But look at how their wars have changed." The screen showed a timeline of human conflicts. Early wars were simple affairs with basic weapons and straightforward tactics. But as the timeline progressed, human warfare became increasingly complex and deadly. "They learn from every fight," Vextar continued. Each war teaches them new ways to wage the next war. They do not just adapt to enemies, they evolve past them. General Thermus crackled with nervous energy. But they are still the same weak species. Their bodies have not changed. Their bodies do not need to change, replied Science Prime Gorthak. Their minds do all the evolving. Look at this. New data appeared showing human military technology advancement. In just a few centuries, humans had gone from fighting with metal swords to building weapons that could destroy planets. This is not normal evolution, Gorthak continued. Most species develop new weapons slowly over thousands of years. Humans develop them in decades. They treat war like a science experiment. The most disturbing discovery came from Alliance psychologists, who had studied human military leaders. Dr. Xantar, a Zainari mind specialist, presented findings that made the entire council step back in alarm. Human military commanders show no emotional satisfaction from victory, she reported. When they win battles, their brain patterns indicate problem-solving completion, not triumph joy. They treat defeated enemies like solved equations. War Chief Krazon felt something he had never experienced before. Genuine terror. You mean they feel nothing when they destroy us? Worse, Dr. Xantar replied. They would feel regret. Humans prefer to win without fighting at all. But if forced to fight, they will continue until the problem is permanently solved, regardless of cost or time required. The Alliance Council was beginning to understand why the war games had been so disturbing. Humans had not been trying to prove they were stronger. They had been demonstrating that they thought about conflict in ways the Alliance could not match. On Earth, human leaders were reaching similar conclusions about their new neighbors. Dr. Hayes had made a discovery that changed everything humans thought they knew about galactic politics. The Deathworld Alliance controls nearly half the galaxy, he announced to the assembled officers. But they have never conquered anyone. Admiral Peterson looked confused. What do you mean? They do not expand through conquest, Hayes explained. They expand through challenge. When they encounter other species, they offer ritual combat. Species that accept the challenge and fight well are invited to join the Alliance. Species that refuse or fight poorly are left alone. General Stone realized the implications immediately. They have never encountered a species that could outfight them using methods they cannot understand. Exactly, Dr. Kelly added. Every species in the Alliance shares the same basic approach to warfare: individual strength, direct confrontation, and ritualized combat. They have created a society based on mutual respect between warrior cultures. Colonel Foster stood up with a worried expression. And now they have met us. A species that treats war like engineering instead of art. The breakthrough came when both human and Alliance researchers discovered the same historical pattern. Dr. Hayes found it in Alliance cultural records, while Science Prime Gorthak found it in human military histories. Every time a species encountered enemies who fundamentally changed how warfare worked, one of two things happened. Either the species adapted and became stronger, or they stopped fighting entirely and focused on other things. The Alliance has never had to adapt, Hayes reported to his colleagues. For millions of years, they have fought the same kinds of wars against the same kinds of enemies. They have never needed to evolve. On the Alliance flagship, Gorthak was reaching the same conclusion. Humans represent something we have never faced before. They are not just a new enemy, they are a new form of warfare itself. War Chief Krazon made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Contact the human leaders, he ordered. Tell them we need to meet again. Not for war games or cultural exchange. We need to discuss something much more important. What? Asked Commander Vextar. Krazon's stone face showed emotions his people rarely felt. Uncertainty and hope. We need to discuss whether our two species can coexist in the same galaxy. Because after what we have learned, I do not think we can afford to be enemies. The message was sent to Earth within hours. Admiral Peterson received it while reviewing battle plans that he now realized might never be needed. The Alliance was not asking for another contest of strength. They were asking for something much more dangerous and much more promising: They were asking for a new way to think about what it meant to be strong in a universe where strength could take many different forms. The war games had ended, but the real test of both species was just beginning. The neutral space station orbited a dead star, far from any inhabited worlds. It had been built specifically for this meeting, the most important negotiation in galactic history. Representatives from both the Federation and the Deathworld Alliance gathered in a room that could determine the future of warfare itself. Ambassador Claire Mitchell sat across from War Chief Crazen, with Admiral Peterson and Colonel Foster at her side. The Alliance delegation included Commander Vextar and General Thermus, along with several other species leaders that humans had never seen before. The first hour of talks went badly. Both sides were polite, but everyone could feel the tension in the air. Finally, War Chief Crazen decided to speak the truth that everyone was avoiding. "Ambassador Mitchell," he said, his stone face serious, "we did not call this meeting to discuss trade agreements or territorial boundaries. We called it because your species terrifies us." Claire had expected this. The psychological reports from both sides made it clear that this was not a normal diplomatic situation. "Can you explain why?" Crazon looked at his fellow Alliance leaders before answering. "For millions of years, the Alliance has been the strongest military force in the galaxy. We have fought countless wars and never lost. But in 3 exercises with your ships, you showed us that strength means nothing if the enemy does not fight the way you expect." General Thermus crackled with nervous energy. "Your people treat war like a puzzle to be solved. We treat it like a dance to be performed. When the music changes, we do not know how to dance." Admiral Peterson leaned forward. "Are you saying you want to avoid conflict with us?" "We are saying," Commander Vextar replied in his grinding voice, "that conflict with your species might not be survivable for either side." This statement hung in the air like a threat. Claire realized that the Alliance was not just afraid of losing to humans. They were afraid of what a war with humans might do to their entire civilization. "Explain what you mean," she requested. War Chief Crazon activated a holographic display showing Alliance territory. "Our empire spans half the galaxy. Every species in the Alliance joined us because they understood our way of war. Ritual combat, individual strength, honor, and battle. These are the foundations of our society." The display changed to show human tactical patterns from the war games. "Your people fight with no honor, no ritual, no respect for individual strength. You win through deception, cooperation, and strategies we cannot predict. If we went to war with you, we would not just lose battles, we would lose our identity." Colonel Foster understood what he meant. "You are afraid that fighting us would change how you think about fighting altogether." "Yes," Crazon admitted. "And if that happens, the Alliance falls apart. Every species in our empire would question why they follow warriors who cannot win wars." But Ambassador Mitchell had been studying the situation from a different angle. "War Chief Crazon, may I ask you something? In all your millions of years of warfare, have you ever actually solved any problems?" The question caught the Alliance delegation off guard. General Thermus was the first to respond. "What do you mean, solved problems?" "You fight wars, you win battles, but do the reasons for fighting ever go away?" Claire explained. "Or do you just fight the same kinds of wars over and over again?" Commander Vextar's metal face showed something that might have been surprise. "Wars are not meant to solve problems. Wars are meant to prove strength." "But what if they could do both?" Admiral Peterson suggested. "What if there was a way to fight that actually ended conflicts permanently?" The Alliance leaders looked at each other with confusion. The concept of permanent solutions to conflict was foreign to species whose entire culture was built around endless warfare. Claire Mitchell stood up and walked to the holographic display. "May I show you something?" She changed the display to Show Federation Territory. 50 years ago, the Federation was just the human colonial union. We controlled 12 worlds and were constantly at war with 3 different alien species. The display showed a complex web of conflicts and territorial disputes. The Rigelian Trade Consortium controlled the shipping lanes. The Centauri Republic controlled the manufacturing worlds. The Andromedan Empire controlled the agricultural systems. Everyone was fighting everyone else for resources. War Chief Crazen studied the display with interest. This looks like a normal galactic situation. How did humans become dominant? We did not become dominant, Claire replied. We became partners. The display changed to show the current Federation structure. Instead of human world surrounded by enemy territory, it showed an integrated network where different species controlled different aspects of galactic civilization based on their natural abilities. We convinced the Rigelians that controlling trade was more profitable than controlling territory. We convinced the Centaurians that building things for everyone was better than building weapons for war. We convinced the Andromedans that feeding the galaxy was more important than conquering it. General Thermus crackled with disbelief. You convinced your enemies to stop being enemies? How is this possible? Colonel Foster pulled up detailed records of the Federation's formation. We showed each species that cooperation could give them more of what they actually wanted than conquest could. The Rigelians wanted profit. The Centaurians wanted to build great things. The Andromedans wanted to nurture life. War was not giving them any of these things. Commander Vextar processed this information with his mechanical precision. You are saying you ended wars by giving everyone what they needed? Not exactly, Admiral Peterson corrected. We ended wars by helping everyone understand what they actually needed, instead of what they thought they wanted. War Chief Crazen felt something he had never experienced before: possibility. But the Alliance species need to fight. It is in our biology. We cannot simply stop being warriors. Claire smiled for the first time since the negotiations began. Who said anything about stopping? We have a different proposal. She changed the display again, this time showing a star map of the entire galaxy. War Chief Crazen, your alliance, controls the most dangerous regions of space, the places where other species cannot survive. The Federation controls the more peaceful areas where cooperation is possible. But look at this. The display highlighted vast sections of unexplored space beyond both empires. There are threats out there that neither of our civilizations could handle alone. Pirates, rogue artificial intelligences, ancient weapon systems, and other dangers that require both overwhelming force and strategic thinking to defeat. Admiral Peterson stood up to join the presentation. What if, instead of fighting each other, we fought these threats together? The Alliance provides the strength and courage needed for direct confrontation. Humans provide the strategy and adaptation needed for long-term solutions. The Alliance delegation was silent for long minutes as they considered this proposal. Finally, War Chief Crazen spoke. You are suggesting a military partnership between our species? More than that, Claire replied. We are suggesting a new way to think about what strength means. Individual power and group intelligence working together instead of against each other. General Thermus blazed with sudden excitement. We could fight enemies that neither of us could defeat alone? Exactly, Colonel Foster confirmed. And more importantly, we could solve the problems that create those enemies in the first place. Commander Vexitar ran calculations in his mechanical mind. This would require unprecedented cooperation between species with completely different military philosophies. Yes, Admiral Peterson agreed. It would be the most challenging thing either of our civilizations has ever attempted. But it would also be the most rewarding. War Chief Crazen made a decision that would echo through galactic history. We accept this proposal, but we have conditions. Name them, Claire said immediately. First, Alliance species must be allowed to fight in their traditional ways when appropriate. We will not abandon our warrior culture for your diplomatic methods. Agreed. Admiral Peterson nodded. Direct assault and overwhelming force are valuable tools when used at the right times. Second, human species must learn to fight with honor and courage when required. We will not follow leaders who hide behind strategy instead of sharing battlefield risks. Colonel Foster smiled. Also agreed. Our officers lead from the front when the situation demands it. Third, this partnership must be tested in real combat before we commit our full forces. Both sides need to prove that cooperation actually works in battle. Claire had been hoping for this condition. The Corvani raiders have been terrorizing the border regions between our territories for months. Neither of our fleets has been able to stop them permanently. Would this be an acceptable test? War Chief Crazon's stone face showed what humans were learning to recognize as anticipation. A perfect test. The raiders use hit-and-run tactics that frustrate alliance forces, but they have bases that require direct assault to destroy. 3. Negotiations continued for 3 more days, as both sides worked out the details of their unprecedented partnership. When the accords were finally signed, they created something new in galactic politics. A military alliance based not on shared enemies or common interests, but on complementary approaches to solving the fundamental problem of conflict itself. 6 months later,